Hey, Zara. Do you remember that moment in our last episode when we did the role play and I asked you to flesh out the client report?
Oh, yeah. I remember that very clearly. I was your assistant. You gave me simple, clear instructions. Update the report, check the figures, make the changes before the meeting. I understood all that perfectly. But then you said, flesh out the report. And then my brain just froze for a second, like someone hit pause.
Like totally froze?
Yup. Yeah. One tiny phrase threw me off track. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even complicated. I knew flesh, I knew out, but together, my brain just went blank. Like, wait, what? Did I miss something?
And that moment, that sudden pause, is what so many English learners experience.
All the time. You're following the conversation. You feel confident. You're ready to respond. And then, when it's your turn to speak, everything slows down. You can't connect the words. You know what you want to say, but you just can't get the sentence out.
And here's the key point. It's not just how many words you know, it's how quickly you can put them together.
Right. A lot of learners try to build a sentence one word at a time, and real English doesn't work like that, especially when you're speaking.
In real conversations, your brain doesn't have time to think, okay, adjective, noun, verb, preposition. That's just too slow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to our key idea today. Instead of searching for individual words and trying to build every sentence from zero, start using chunks. So what are chunks?
Chunks are groups of words that naturally go together and are remembered and used as one unit. For example, I don't know. That makes sense. As soon as possible. At the moment. By the way. These are not just random words next to each other. And English is full of chunks. They appear everywhere. In conversations, at work, when traveling, and in everyday situations.
Before we go any further, let's clear something up. We're not saying English is only made of chunks. We're not saying you'll have a chunk for everything. And we're definitely not promising a magic shortcut.
Right. Chunks don't replace grammar or vocabulary.
But there are ready-made chunks that native speakers use all the time, and using some of them can help you sound more natural, quite quickly.
Think of language chunks like Lego bricks. Instead of building sentences word by word, you can place a whole chunk into position. Combining these blocks lets you make natural sentences quickly and easily. Plus, it's faster. It's smoother. It's how fluent speakers operate.
Like flesh out. That's a chunk. A phrasal verb, actually. And by the way, Theo, we never explained what it means in the last episode.
Oh, yeah. So let's fix that.
When you flesh something out, you take a basic idea, a plan, or maybe a story, and you add more details to make it complete.
Right. The idea is just the skeleton, the bare bones, and then you add the flesh to give it shape.
You develop it. You expand it. Imagine you're at work and your manager says, "Our plan for the new project is good, but we need to flesh it out before we show the client."
Perfect. That means the plan is still quite basic. You need to add the timeline, the budget, the details, everything the client needs. Now, notice this. When you use a phrase like flesh out, you're not building the sentence word by word anymore. You're using a ready-made piece of English.
And that's how fluent speakers talk. Not because we're grammar experts, but because we have a library of these chunks ready to use. Your brain simply doesn't have time to build complex grammar. So instead of creating sentences word by word, fluent speakers use ready-made phrases straight from memory.
Whereas a lot of learners know thousands of words.
But those words sit separately in the brain, not connected, not ready to use.
And that's why speaking can feel slow or stressful or stuck.
So today, we're going to change that.
We'll give you chunks you can start using today. It's faster, it's smoother, it's how fluent speakers talk.
No long lists, no complicated theory, just real chunks for real conversations.
And the best part? They're easy to use, even at an intermediate level.
So Theo, why are these chunks such a big deal? What's the big idea?
We need to step back for a moment. To really understand this, you have to look at how our brains process language. The way many people learn English is quite different from how it's actually used in real life.
Right. Because in school, you're taught individual words, some idioms and some phrasal verbs. You memorize word lists. You study definitions.
You translate meanings. And of course, vocabulary is important.
But the real problem isn't that you don't have enough words. The words you learn often just sit there on their own. They're not connected and not ready to use.
Absolutely. In real, fast conversations, fluent speakers are not creating every sentence from scratch. They're not choosing every single word one by one and then building the sentence piece by piece.
They already have thousands of common word combinations stored in their memory, groups of words that naturally belong together. And that's what we call chunks. You might also hear us call them ready-made language.
If you think about everyday English, we often say things like, to be honest, it depends on, at the end of the day. That makes sense. We're not building these sentences word by word when we speak. We just use ready-made phrases.
And that's what makes speaking faster. When you try to speak word by word, your brain has to manage a lot at the same time. You have to choose the words, you have to organize the grammar, you have to think about pronunciation. You have to make sure your message is clear. And you're trying to do all of this while the conversation is still happening.
That's a lot of pressure. And that's why learners often hesitate and say, not because they have nothing to say, not because they don't know English, but because their brain is searching and building everything at the same time.
And that's where chunks really help. Because instead of creating every sentence from individual pieces, you already have some ready-made language available.
It's like using your phone. You don't think about placing your thumb on the screen, applying pressure, and moving it upward. You just swipe up. It becomes one quick, natural action. Or like a musician who doesn't think about every individual note in a song. Language works in a very similar way.
Fluency isn't about knowing every possible word. It's about making more of your language automatic.
That's the key. Chunks reduce the number of choices your brain has to make in the moment.
So the big idea today is simple. Don't just collect individual words. Start collecting useful combinations of words. Start collecting chunks.
And the data actually backs that up. Research shows that nearly 60% of spoken English is made up of these ready-made chunks.
Wow, 60%? That means more than half of what we say isn't even built from scratch.
Yep, it's already there. It's stored. And that's the real connection between chunks and speaking fluently. When you use chunks, you're not replacing grammar. You're helping your brain use English much more clearly.
And this gives you some very practical advantages in conversations.
Exactly. It completely shifts how you communicate. So let's break it down and look at what really changes. We're going to look at 3 key benefits of using chunks. And the first one is a big one. Chunks reduce the amount of translating you do in your head.
Think about how you speak your native language. You don't build sentences word by word. You just use expressions you've said hundreds of times. You don't stop and think about every single word. It just comes out naturally because those expressions are already familiar to you.
So instead of thinking in your language first and then translating,
Exactly. You already have the full phrase ready in English, and that's what makes your speech faster, smoother, and much more natural.
and honestly, that's when speaking starts to feel easy.
Imagine someone at work asks you, "What do you think about the new company policy?"
A learner might think, okay, I want to say I don't have a full opinion yet. I've only looked at it briefly. Maybe I need more time to understand it. And then the pressure starts building. Because now you're trying to create a sentence and translate every part at the same time.
But a fluent speaker has a chunk ready to start the answer, based on what I've seen so far, or at first glance.
These are simple chunks, but they give you an immediate starting point.
And notice what happened there. You didn't stop to build the beginning of the sentence from individual words. You started with a ready-made block of language. So instead of hesitating, I think maybe this idea. You can say, based on what I've seen so far, it looks good, but we might need more time to look at the details.
That's the real beauty of it. The chunk gives your brain a few extra seconds to think about the actual message you want to communicate. You're still using grammar. You're still choosing your ideas. But you're not spending all your energy trying to build the first few words from scratch. Benefit 2. Chunks give your brain more time to think.
And that leads us into another important benefit. Chunks don't just help you start speaking, they also give your brain more time to think. Imagine you're having dinner with friends, and someone asks you, "What was the best part of your holiday?"
You know the answer. You have memories and ideas in your head, but your brain needs a moment to organize everything. Where do you start? Which details should you mention first? How do you put the story together naturally?
And that's the moment when many learners start to panic. They think, I need to answer quickly. I need to find the perfect words. But instead of freezing, you can use a ready-made chunk to give yourself some thinking time. You can say, let me think. Or the first thing that comes to mind is, these phrases are simple, but they give you a smooth and confident way to begin. They create a small space for your brain to organize your ideas without leaving an uncomfortable silence.
And while you're saying those words, your brain is working in the background, preparing your real answer. Chunks act like little bridges in conversation. They keep you moving while your thoughts catch up. And this is important because these phrases don't make you sound unsure. Actually, they can make you sound more natural. They show that you're thinking and organizing your answer, not that you don't know what to say.
And finally, chunks help your English sound more natural and conversational. They help you move away from sentences that are grammatically correct, but don't always sound like something people would naturally say.
Imagine you're meeting a friend and you want to suggest doing something together. A learner might say, "Is it possible that we can go drink coffee somewhere?" Now, there is nothing wrong with the grammar. People will understand you. But in a casual conversation, it sounds a little more formal than necessary.
A fluent speaker might use a simple conversational chunk instead. How about we grab a coffee? How about we go for a walk? How about we check out that new place?
See how natural that sounds? This small chunk immediately gives you a friendly way to make a suggestion. You don't have to build the whole sentence from the beginning. You already have the structure. You just add your own idea.
And notice what happened there. You didn't have to stop and think, how do I make this sound more casual? How do I change the grammar?
The chunk already gives you that conversational style.
That's the real power of chunks. They don't just help you speak faster, they help you move more smoothly into everyday conversations.
And remember, building this skill takes time. It won't happen overnight. But the more you notice chunks, the more your brain starts recognizing them naturally.
So here's a simple way to start. Don't try to learn 20 or 50 chunks at once. That just becomes another vocabulary list. Start small. Choose just 2 chunks and focus on making them part of your English.
That's it. Just 2.
First, understand them. Write them down with the meaning and a few example sentences. Then listen out for them in films, videos, podcasts, or everyday conversations.
And then, the most important step, use them. Try using your new chunks in real conversations. Don't just collect chunks. Build a relationship with them. After that, challenge yourself. Use them in different situations, maybe in a conversation, an email, or even a message. And don't rush to learn new ones before you feel comfortable with the ones you already have. You know what? 2 useful chunks every couple of weeks adds up. By the end of the year, you could have a library of over 50 chunks. And, more importantly, you'll actually know how to use them.
Now that we understand how chunks connect to fluency, let's look at the next question. How do you actually use them in everyday conversations?
And that's the real test. A chunk is only useful when it becomes something you can use naturally. You don't want to just look at a phrase on a page and understand it.
You want your brain to recognize the situation and know when that chunk fits.
Because conversations happen for a reason. Someone asks a question, someone shares an opinion, someone changes the topic, someone gives you new information, and certain chunks will naturally appear in those moments.
So we've organized today's chunks by their purpose, because the most useful question is not, is this phrase advanced?
The better question is, when would I actually use this?
Today, we're looking at 4 everyday situations: starting or changing a topic, keeping the conversation flowing, sharing your opinion in a discussion, making plans and talking about next steps.
We'll take you through simple scenarios and show you how these chunks work in real conversations.
So as you listen, imagine yourself in these situations. Think about where these chunks could fit into your own conversations.
The goal is not just to recognize these chunks, it's to start building your own library of automatic English.
Let's start with an important conversational skill: knowing how to start a topic naturally.
Right. A lot of learners know exactly what they want to talk about, but they don't know how to begin without sounding too direct or sudden.
Imagine you see a coworker or a friend and you want to ask about something specific. A learner might go straight to the question. Can you help me with the budget? It's grammatically correct, but it can feel a little sudden.
Instead, fluent speakers often add a small opening chunk first. I've been meaning to ask you, could you help me with the budget?
And it works outside work too. Instead of suddenly asking, what did you do last weekend? You can say, I've been meaning to ask you, how did your weekend trip go?
This small phrase tells the other person, I've had this question in my mind and now feels like a good time to talk about it. It makes the conversation feel smoother and more natural.
And as a bonus, here's another useful chunk for conversations. If you're already talking and you want to move to a completely different topic, you can use by the way.
For example, I thought the football game last night was great.
And you want to smoothly change the topic. Yeah, it was. By the way, did you see who they're playing next?
So remember, use I've been meaning to ask you when you want to start a topic, and use by the way when you want to change the topic. Imagine a friend asks for your honest opinion about something, maybe a movie, a book, or a new song. But the truth is, you didn't really enjoy it.
For example, a friend asks, what did you think of that new movie everyone is talking about? You found it a bit boring.
A learner might say, I think it was too long, or I didn't like it. That is clear, but in a casual conversation, it can sound a little too direct.
A more natural way to share your opinion is, to be honest, I thought it was too long.
This small phrase makes your comment sound softer and more conversational.
And you can use it for positive opinions too. For example,
to be honest, I actually liked it more than the first one. So remember, use to be honest to when you want to share your true opinion in a natural way. Small phrases like this do a lot of work. They help you express your thoughts clearly while keeping the conversation comfortable.
Let's move on. Here, we'll look at chunks that help you keep a conversation alive. They are the phrases that show you're listening, reacting, and staying connected.
And this matters because fluent conversations aren't only about speaking. They're also about responding quickly, confidently, and without overthinking.
Many learners freeze not because they don't know what to say, but because they don't know how to react in the moment.
So these chunks help you stay in the conversation. They show understanding, agreement, or connection without needing long sentences.
Imagine a friend cancels your dinner plans at the last minute and says, "I really can't go out tonight. I've had a busy week."
A learner might reply with, "Okay," or "Fine." Those words are grammatically correct, but they can sound a little cold.
A more natural and warmer reaction is, "Fair enough, we can do something next weekend."
This small chunk tells your friend, "I understand your reason, and that's okay." It keeps the relationship positive and the conversation moving.
It works beautifully at work, too. A colleague says, "I think we should wait for the final data before we send the email." You can reply, "Fair enough. Let's see what comes in tomorrow morning."
This next phrase is incredibly useful because you can use it in many everyday situations. Whenever someone explains a choice, a plan, or a change, this chunk fits naturally.
For example, a friend tells you, "I decided to cancel my weekend trip because the flights were too expensive."
A learner might reply with, "I understand." There's nothing wrong with that, but it can sound a little formal.
A more natural reaction would be, "That makes sense. Prices are crazy right now."
Or imagine your manager says, "We're moving our team meeting to next week because the client needs more time." You can simply say, "Okay, that makes sense."
It shows that you understand the reason behind someone's decision, and that creates connection and helps the conversation continue naturally.
So remember, use "fair enough" when you want to accept someone's reason or choice politely. Use "that makes sense" when you want to show that you understand why something happened.
Let's move to group 3. Here, we'll look at chunks that help you handle opinions and deeper discussions. These are the phrases you need when a conversation becomes a little more complex.
This is where many learners struggle, not because they don't have good ideas, but because they don't know how to express them smoothly.
These chunks help you sound thoughtful, calm, and confident. They allow you to share your thoughts without sounding too direct or aggressive.
Imagine a colleague at work says, "I think we should delay the project launch."
You understand their point, but you don't completely agree. A learner might say, "I don't agree with that." It's clear, but it can create tension straight away.
A smoother way is, "I see your point. The design is important, but if we keep delaying it, we might lose the client."
Pause there. Notice what happened there. You recognize the other person's idea first, and then you introduce your own perspective.
It works in everyday life too. A friend says, "I think traveling in winter is much better because there are fewer tourists." You can say, "I see your point. It's definitely quieter, but I really prefer warm weather."
Block 6. As far as I know. Use it when you share information you believe is true, but you're not completely certain. This chunk is really useful when someone asks you for information. It allows you to answer honestly when you don't have 100% confirmation.
For example, a friend asks, "Is the concert still happening this Thursday?"
A learner might reply, "I think yes." It's understandable, but it sounds a little uncertain.
A more natural response would be, "As far as I know, yes, but they might change the date."
It works perfectly at work too. A colleague asks, "Has the client approved the new budget yet?" You can say, "As far as I know, they're still reviewing it."
This phrase shows that you're sharing what you know right now while being honest that the situation could change. So remember, use "I see your point" when you want to show respectful disagreement. Use "as far as I know" when you want to share information you're not completely certain.
And now we're in group 4, chunks that help you move conversations forward. These are practical, everyday expressions you can use at work, with friends, and in many different situations. Because conversations don't just stay in one place. They move. People make decisions, people share updates, people talk about what happens next.
And these chunks help you guide that movement more smoothly.
Let's start with a chunk that fluent speakers find very useful. Imagine you're choosing a restaurant with a friend. Your friend asks, "Where should we go for dinner?"
A learner might say, "You choose." That's correct, but it sounds a little flat.
A more natural and friendly way is, "It's up to you."
Here's another example. You're visiting a relative in England, and they ask, "Where should we go for dinner?" You can answer, "It's up to you. I'm happy with anything."
It's polite, relaxed, and natural. It shows you're flexible and happy to let the other person decide.
It works at work, too. A colleague from another branch asks, "Should we meet online or in person?" You respond, "It's up to you. Whatever works best."
This chunk is useful because it helps people make decisions without creating extra pressure.
Now let's look at another very common English chunk, especially in workplace conversations.
Imagine someone is waiting for information, results, or confirmation. A learner might say, "Tell me when you know." That's understandable, but it can sound a little direct.
A more natural way is "keep me posted."
For example, a colleague says, "I'm still waiting for the client's reply." You can say, "Okay, keep me posted." Or a friend might say, "I'm not sure if I can come this weekend. I need to check." And you can respond, "No problem, keep me posted."
It's friendly, simple, and natural. It shows you want updates while keeping the conversation relaxed.
And that brings us to the end of our 8 chunks. But notice something really important here.
These weren't just a random list of phrases to memorize.
Right. Each group had a specific purpose. You learned how to start a conversation naturally, how to keep it moving without freezing, how to share your opinions respectfully, and how to make decisions and follow up smoothly.
And that's what fluency is really about. It's not only about knowing more words, it's about knowing the right language for the right moment.
These chunks give your brain ready-made tools you can reach for when real conversations happen.
So don't just watch this episode once and move on. Go back to the step-by-step plan we talked about earlier, how to learn the chunks. Pick just 1 or 2 chunks to focus on. Listen for them, write them down, and start using them. Because understanding a chunk is one thing, using it naturally is something completely different.
So we're going to listen to a normal, casual chat between 2 colleagues during a break.
Listen carefully and see if you can spot the chunks we use.
Zara, are you still thinking about starting that photography course?
Yeah, I am. I really want to do it, but I'm not sure I'll have enough time.
Fair enough. It's always good to think about your schedule before you commit to something.
Exactly. I want to improve my skills, but to be honest, I don't want it to take over all my free time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes we take on too many things and then feel overwhelmed.
That's a good point. I think I need to find the right balance.
Did you notice those chunks? Let's look at them quickly.
First, fair enough. Theo used it to show he understood my concern about time.
Next, to be honest, Zara used it to introduce her real opinion gently.
Another useful one, that makes sense. Theo used it to show he understood my reasoning.
And finally, that's a good point. Zara used it to show she agrees with my point.
Now it's your turn to practice. Imagine you're talking to a colleague. They say, "I'm thinking about moving to a new city, but I'm worried because I won't know anyone there." How would you respond? Try to use one of today's chunks. Pause the audio and try to answer. You could say, "That makes sense. Moving somewhere new can feel difficult at first."
Notice what happened. You didn't have to build your whole response from zero. You started with a chunk, and that gave your brain a moment to organize your ideas.
Now let's try another situation. This time, imagine a coworker tells you, "I've decided to start working from the office 4 days a week instead of working from home." How would you respond? Try to use a chunk from today to share your reaction. Pause the audio and try to answer. If you have a different opinion, you could say, "To be honest, I prefer working from home because there are fewer distractions."
The chunk gives you a natural starting point. And this is the big shift we want you to take away from today.
Because maybe until now, you've been thinking, I just need more vocabulary.
But here's the truth. It's not about how many words you know. It's about how your brain stores them.
Fluent speakers don't build sentences word by word. They use ready-made pieces of language.
Like the phrases we've used today, and many more like them.
These aren't just phrases. They're tools. They help you start speaking instantly, without stopping to think about grammar.
So now you might be wondering, what next from here? Where do I start so I can improve? Open a notebook. At the top of the page, write chunks I can use. And from now on, don't just collect and write down single words. Your notebook should not just have a list of words you hear and write. Start collecting full expressions you can actually use. For instance, choose just 2 chunks. That's enough. Don't try to do too much at once. But here's the part most learners never do. And this is what makes the difference. Don't just write the chunk once. Use it 3 times.
Absolutely. Use it in at least 3 different situations. Write and say them out loud.
For instance, to be honest, write your 3 sentences about a movie, a friend's idea, a project you're working on.
This is what makes it stick. Your brain doesn't learn chunks by seeing them. It learns them by using them in different situations.
That's when a chunk stops being something you recognize and becomes something you can actually use.
You know, Zara, I've really enjoyed this episode. And just a big thank you to the audience for spending your time with us today.
Yep. We know there are a lot of ways our viewers could be learning English, so we really honored you're here with us.
Absolutely. And if today made things feel clearer for you, that's exactly the goal.
Exactly. We want to see you improve.
Now, if you enjoyed this, don't disappear on us. Please remember to like the video, share it with someone who wants to improve their English, and don't forget to leave a comment. Oh, yeah, and please make sure you subscribe to English Shift so you don't miss the next episode.
Yep. And guess we've added something extra for you. Check the post below this video. You'll find quizzes and practice to help you use today's chunks straight away. We'll keep posting more great quizzes.
You can test yourself, get instant answers, and actually start building these into your real conversations.
Because watching and listening is great, but using the language, that's where the real progress happens.
So next time someone asks you a question, no more panic.
No more staring into the distance like your brain just left the meeting.
Exactly. Now you've got your chunks ready.
You start with, to be honest.
And suddenly, you sound like you've been speaking English your whole life.
That's the goal.
Thanks again for being here.
Keep practicing, keep noticing chunks.
And we'll see you in the next episode of English Shift.
Bye, everyone.